Where the heck did you get that necklace? Her voice, sharp as broken glass, cut across the chandelier-lit dining room, slicing through laughter, silverware, and every ounce of warmth in the air. Everyone froze. I remember standing there, tray in my hands, linen apron still wet from the kitchen sink, and realizing too late that she was talking to me. Vivian Devereaux, the queen of Southern society, mother of Jackson Devereaux. The man I loved rose slowly from her seat, like a storm gathering. Her heels clacked against marble. Her eyes locked on my chest, on the delicate gold necklace that had belonged to my mother. Then with one violent tug, she grabbed the front of my blouse and ripped it open right there in front of 50 guests. Gasps filled the room. I could still hear the fabric tear, still feel the cold rush of air on my skin, and the shame. My hands shot up to cover myself. Her voice was venom. You think no one would notice wearing that like you belong here, parading around like you're one of us? I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. And just when I thought the floor might swallow me whole, Mother. Jackson's chair scraped back loud and angry. He crossed the room in seconds, wrapping his suit jacket around my shoulders like armor. You've gone too far, he said, staring her down. You had no right. But Vivian wasn't done. Her eyes burned into me as she hissed, that necklace belonged to her. That woman who slithered into our lives, your father's trust, always smiling, always so obedient. She meant my mother. I finally found my voice, shaking but steady. My mother was loyal. She was dignified. She respected your husband, and he respected her. Vivian let out a bitter laugh. She taught you well then. Look where you are now. She taught me to carry dignity in silence, I said, meeting her stare. To keep my head high no matter who tried to crush it. You hated her, not because she wronged you, but because she reminded you of everything you pretended to be. For a second, she flinched. Then Jackson turned to me and said the words that lit the room on fire. I love her, and I intend to marry her. You could hear jaws hitting the floor. He's marrying the maid, disgraceful, unheard of. I felt 50 pairs of eyes slice through me, pity, disgust, curiosity. But one burned colder than the rest. Charlotte Pierce, blonde, perfect pearls tight around her neck. The woman everyone assumed Jackson would marry. She didn't say a word. She just stared at me like I'd stolen something that was hers by blood. Later that night, I sat in my tiny room in the back of the house, his jacket still wrapped around me. The blouse was folded in my lap, torn like me. But when I looked at the necklace, I didn't feel broken. I felt defiant. That necklace carried pain, yes, but also legacy. I wasn't just my mother's daughter. I was her continuation. Downstairs, Vivian wasn't sleeping. She was planning. She handed an envelope to her longtime housekeeper, Clara. Talk her into leaving. Tell her this house is poison. Clara found me by the garden the next morning. Sometimes, she said gently, being brave means knowing when to walk away. I shook my head. My mother walked away. I won't. Clara studied me, then smiled, soft but proud. Then fight, but fight wise. But war doesn't always come with marching boots. Sometimes it walks in wearing a pearl necklace and sips tea in your enemy's drawing room. Vivian and Charlotte formed an alliance, quiet but deadly. She's clever, Charlotte whispered. But if we make him doubt her. They started planting seeds. Whispers, looks, pity disguised as concern. She's rehearsed. She's too poised. Doesn't that seem convenient? At the museum gala, they unleashed the first wave. I wore a dress Clara had helped me fix, simple, respectful. But still, I felt the stares, the judgment, the whispered comparisons. She moves like she studied it, someone muttered. I saw Jackson flinch at that. The next day, Charlotte handed me a gown for another event. Emerald silk. Beautiful, but revealing. I knew it was a trap. If I wore it as is, they'd call me a seductress. If I refused, they'd say I was ashamed. So Clara and I made changes. We made it mine. And when I walked into that ballroom, I held my head high. But they weren't done. Later that week, they staged it. I was sent to the library to deliver a message. Inside, Henry Alcott Jackson's childhood friend and Charlotte's weapon. He tried to corner me, speak low, suggest partnerships if things didn't work out with Jackson. I told him to back off. But right then, Jackson walked in. Henry, that snake, bowed mockingly. "I'll leave you two." Jackson's eyes were cold, distant. "This isn't what it looked like," I said, stepping toward him. He didn't answer. That night I cried until I couldn't breathe. Not because they got to me, but because he let them. Still, I didn't run. The next evening, the Whitmore Foundation hosted a major press event. Vivian took the mic and said with sickly grace that the family legacy was being threatened, implying me. Before Jackson could speak, I stepped forward. "You want Charleston to judge," I said. "Let them." I told the truth, not just about what happened, but about what it meant. About my mother. About dignity. About how legacy isn't passed down by blood, but earned through honor. Charlotte smirked. "Quite the performance," she said. I looked her dead in the eye. "You call it performance because you've never known truth." Then I turned to Jackson. "I don't need protection. I need belief. Not behind closed doors, but here, in front of them." He froze. And for a second I thought, this is it. He'll stay silent again. But then, "Enough," he said. He turned to the room. "I choose her. Not in secret, not in shame, but in truth." You could feel the air shift, like a dam had cracked. Charlotte's mask broke. Vivian's lips went pale. And I, after everything, I stood taller than I ever had. Later that night, Jackson and I sat in the quiet of the garden. He held my hand like it was a promise, not of perfection, but of honesty. I whispered to my mother's memory. "They tried to erase me, just like they erased you. But I stood. And this time, someone stood with me." Now I want to ask you, have you ever seen someone judged for who they were or where they came from? Have you ever had to fight to be seen as more than what others assumed? Drop a comment and tell your truth. Because somewhere someone needs to hear it. And if you believe dignity is louder than legacy, share this story. Let them know we don't bow anymore. "Where the heck did you get that necklace?" Her voice, sharp as broken glass, cut across the chandelier-lit dining room, slicing through laughter, silverware, and every ounce of warmth in the air. Everyone froze. I remember standing there, tray in my hands, linen apron still wet from the kitchen sink, and realizing too late that she was talking to me. Vivian Devereaux, the queen of Southern society, mother of Jackson Devereaux. The man I loved rose slowly from her seat, like a storm gathering. Her heels clacked against marble. Her eyes locked on my chest, on the delicate gold necklace that had belonged